Tanya looked at the little old house. Yes, it was far from a palace, but she was overjoyed even to have this. After leaving the orphanage, she'd been shuffled from one office to another for nearly 3 years without being given anywhere to live. It was lucky that they don't abandon their own, and so she lived, now here, now there. When they told her the only place available was a house in the countryside, Tanya was indignant at first. But the official, smiling slyly, told her that if she didn't like it, she'd have to wait another year or 2. Tanya agreed. It wasn't so bad. People live in the countryside. Maybe it would even be easier there. With determination, she opened the door, stepped inside, and sneezed. Yes, dust lay in thick clumps everywhere. But there was one definite plus. There was at least some furniture in the house. Rolling up her sleeves, she set to work cleaning. Not half an hour had passed before someone knocked on the door. Tanya cried out, startled, "Yes?" She wasn't expecting anyone. On the threshold stood a woman of about 45, smiling kindly. "Hello there. I was wondering who was making herself at home in this abandoned house." Tanya smiled back. "They gave it to me as an orphan," she said. The woman frowned. "How so? It's practically uninhabitable." "Oh, what's happening in the world these days?" the woman exclaimed. "My name's Rita, Margarita Sergeyevna, or just Aunt Rita." She stepped inside and looked around. "How do you expect to live here? This is sheer horror." Tanya shrugged. "Well, I didn't have much choice. So I'll wash it, clean it, fix it up." "Yes, fix it up. Look, you keep at it and I'll rally my family. Together we'll get the job done faster." Tanya tried to stop her. She said she could manage on her own, and besides, she had no way to pay. Rita paused at the mention of money. "Let's get one thing straight. I'm not taking a penny the first time, and frankly, it's only because you haven't seen what life is. In our village, we're one big family, so don't bring up money. People here are open-hearted. If they want to help, they offer. If they want to sell, they say so, understood?" Tanya nodded. "Yes, all right, good. But you still haven't told me your name." "Tanya." "Nice name. Well, see you soon." Rita slipped away as quickly as she'd appeared. Tanya blinked several times, trying to grasp what was happening, then smiled. She felt a lightness in her heart. Before long, the door burst open again, this time without knocking. "Meet my husband, Mikhail. He'll see what needs nailing up here." "And this is my daughter Anna, and this is Tanya. She'll be our neighbor now." Tanya immediately liked her new neighbors. Rita was beyond words, and her husband, a silent giant, obeyed his wife without question. They seemed like a family from a heartwarming story, a real loving family. That evening, Anna set the table while Rita and Tanya scrubbed the windows. After inspecting the house, Rita said, "Well, there's still plenty of work, but it's already livable." Tanya nodded, beaming. There was no comparison between the place she'd seen when she arrived and how it looked now. Anna dashed home and returned with some beautiful napkins and towels, and Tanya's little home was suddenly cozy. They sat down to dinner. Rita talked about the villagers and how many berries and mushrooms grew in these parts. Mikhail just grunted in approval. "Don't worry, Tanya, we'll find you a job and even a husband." Tanya laughed. "Oh, please, why would I need a husband? I'd rather stay single." "But why not?" "That's how life's meant to be. People start families, have children, live together and help each other." Tanya waved her hand. "That only happens one time in 1,000. Most of the time, people run off and abandon their children." Rita sighed. "I don't know what happened in your family, but don't think that's normal. Live here a while and you'll see." Tanya settled in quickly. Within a week, she realized she could relax a bit. In the countryside, you needn't suspect everyone of ill intent. Folks say what they mean. Sometimes it's blunt, but you can be sure no one's hiding a knife behind your back. She got a job as a nanny at the village kindergarten. The pay was small, but she hardly spent anything because as soon as the villagers learned she'd come from an orphanage, they showered her with gifts. At first, Tanya tried to refuse, but they took offense. They gave from the heart. Even after she'd been there a while, they still tried to feed her and treat her. Just yesterday, Grandpa Nikitich hailed her as she was walking home from work. "Tanya, coming from work?" "Yes, Nikifor Nikitich." "Stop by with your old lady for a minute." Tanya sighed and headed to the gate. Granny was already waiting. Here, Tanya, our cucumbers and tomatoes are growing amazingly well this year. Take some, and if you can't eat them all now, can them for winter. You know how good cucumbers taste in winter. Granny noticed the horror on Tanya's face at the sight of 2 buckets overflowing with vegetables. Don't worry, Tanya. Grandpa will help you. In the 2 months Tanya had lived in the village, she'd learned so much. First, she, Rita and Anna planted her entire vegetable garden after Mikhail had loosened the soil with his tractor. Then she learned to water, to hoe, and even to taste some of her own produce. She learned not to wake when Rita's crazy rooster flew onto her fence, right under her window, and crowed its head off. The next day was Tanya's day off, and she decided to devote the entire evening to preserving the vegetables. Granny was right. Everything would come in handy in winter. That evening, Anna dropped by. "Look, my mother sent you some mushrooms." "Oh, are mushrooms already growing?" Tanya asked. Anna chuckled. "Of course they are. The forest begins right behind your garden. If you go, don't wander too far. It's endless." Early the next morning, Tanya grabbed a basket she'd found in the attic and set out for the woods. Her mood was wonderful. She'd never picked mushrooms before, though she understood what to look for. The beauty around her was indescribable. Mist hung in the lowlands, while behind the trees the sun was just rising. Tanya almost squealed with delight and mentally thanked once again the officials who had tried to cut costs at her expense. Despite having barely slept, vans had beeping through the streets all night. She never regretted rising so early. She found the first mushroom right at the forest's edge and immediately felt the thrill of a forager. 2 hours later, her basket was full of small, sturdy porcini. Tanya looked around with regret. There was so much more. Behind the bushes lay a small bog, and on it grew last year's cranberries. She set her basket beneath a large, distinctive oak, covered it with burdock leaves, removed her kerchief, made a makeshift sack, and went after the cranberries. She didn't know how much time had passed, but her growling stomach reminded her it was time to go home. "All right, I'm coming," she muttered. The sun was already slanting toward the horizon. Had she really spent the whole day in the forest? Tanya stood upright and froze. On the far side of the bog lay an airplane. Completely decayed, apparently since World War II, she surmised. But the villagers must know about it, since it wasn't far, so it must be safe. Tanya circled the plane, ran her hand over its wing. Incredible! Why hadn't anyone removed it? She climbed onto a rock to peer inside, and suddenly, a sneeze. Startled and frightened, Tanya fell. "Oh, who's there?" she called. Silence. She would have run, but the sneeze had sounded small and childlike, perhaps even an animal sneezing. The young woman straightened up with determination, brushed herself off, and climbed back onto the rock. When she finally peered inside, she gasped. Tearful, red-rimmed child's eyes looked back at her. "You? Who are you? And what are you doing in there? Come on, I'll help you out." A little girl of about 5 or 6, no older, held out her hand trustingly. Tanya pulled her out and examined her. Just a few scrapes, no other injuries. "How did you end up here?" The girl sniffled and tried to speak, but no words came. Tanya took a small bottle of water from her pocket. The child drank greedily, then handed back the bottle and said, "I got mad at Daddy, then got lost. I wanted to see the airplane and fell in. I couldn't get out. I was so scared when it got dark." Tanya's eyes widened. "So you sat here all night?" "Yes. Then I fell asleep." Tanya imagined how terrifying it must have been and felt her heart tighten. "Come on, let's go. Quickly. I live nearby. I'll feed you, then we'll look for your dad." "All right. Just tell him not to be angry with me. I didn't mean to get lost." "I'll be sure to tell him." Tanya resolved to explain everything, so he'd know whether he was really a father or just a name. She picked up her basket and strode toward the village, holding the girl's hand firmly. The little one, still shaken, didn't stop talking for a moment. Tanya learned that the girl's name was Ksyusha, that she had no mother, that they lived in the city, and that her father was very kind but worked a lot, and that it hurt Ksyusha terribly. That morning, she'd begged her father to take her to the lake to see the swans and then into the forest to hear the cuckoo. But he said he was too busy and that she'd have to wait, and Ksyusha simply refused. And so she'd slipped away and gotten lost. By the time Siusha finished her story, they'd reached Tanya's house. Suddenly the child grew tired. She managed only a few spoonfuls of soup before falling asleep. Tanya laid her on the couch, tucked her in, and wondered what to do next. The answer was obvious. She had to run to Aunt Rita. Rita would know what to do. "What, you found her? The whole district's up in arms looking for her. Imagine that." "Daddy's going crazy." "Aunt Rita, please call whoever you need. I'll be right there. I've had enough of last night." "Run, Tanya. I'll call the officer." Not half an hour later, 2 cars screeched to a halt outside. Tanya started to warn them to be quiet, but didn't make it in time. A young man burst in like a whirlwind and, barely glancing at Tanya, cried, "Ksiusha, my darling!" The girl opened her eyes and leapt into her father's arms, crying, "Daddy, I'm sorry. I was so scared. I'll never do it again." He stroked her hair. "And forgive me. We'll go see swans and listen for cuckoos, I promise." Ksiusha turned to Tanya. "Are you coming with us?" The man looked at Tanya. She blushed. "Of course, if you'd like to come." It turned out that Igor was a kind of internet whiz who could work from anywhere and was very well paid, apparently designing games. Tanya knew nothing about computers, so she had no idea what he was talking about the following week when they all walked to the lake. Ksiusha ran ahead, then stopped. "Dad, you're acting like a little boy. Do you talk about that stuff with a lady?" Igor flushed. "I'm sorry, Tanya. I don't talk much with women. I forgot what to say." In that moment, Tanya's shyness vanished. The rest of the afternoon they argued animatedly about why swans have such long necks when the sun sets and whether aliens can feel love. Later, Igor and Ksiusha walked her home, the same place where Igor's car was parked. They were renting a house for the summer in the next village. They lingered over farewells. Ksiusha didn't want to let Tanya go, and Igor held her hand a little too long. Finally, the car drove off. Tanya sighed and stepped toward her own door. "See, I told you this village is wonderful, so peaceful. You'll find everything here, even a husband." Tanya turned to Rita, who was smiling. She laughed. "Oh, Aunt Rita, Igor's not my boyfriend. We're just friends because of Ksiusha, you know." She headed inside, and Rita whispered after her, "You can't escape your happiness, my dear, no matter how hard you try." A year later, Tanya and Igor returned to the village to ask Rita to be godmother to their newborn baby. But how could Rita refuse such a request from a young family, especially when little Ksiusha asked so earnestly? If you enjoyed this story, please show your support with a thumbs up. It's one click for you, but it means the world to me. All the best.